Kalen's mech sprinted through the devastated city, a blur of motion, leaping over overturned vehicles and piles of rubble, heading directly towards the LSF spire. He quickly found news reports confirming his grim prediction. Large siege-class warmechs were indeed attacking the spire, fulfilling his prediction of maximum terror and calculated blame for himself. He slowed his relentless pace, searching for a suitable vantage point for Bryn. She preferred cover, a stable position for her railgun. Kalen found a towering, half-collapsed building, perfect for her. He dropped her off, wedging his hand into a concrete slab to steady himself, and allowing her to scale the rest of the way up the shattered facade. As he landed, crushing a discarded trash compactor with a heavy thud, Bryn signaled her position. Kalen's internal programs, initially concerned for Bryn's safety in a potentially collapsing building, were quickly assuaged by her personal files, highlighting her titanium alloy armor, fast reaction times, and core memory preservation system. These made her nearly indestructible without systematic destruction, which would be difficult with Kalen in his massive mech drawing all the attention. He spun up his arm-mounted cannon, its barrel glowing with stored energy. He scanned the chaos below. 4 massive warmechs, one already embedded deep within the spire, its upper torso protruding like a grotesque metal tumor. The urban environment offered no cover for his massive suit, leaving him exposed. Kalen rapidly calculated the disadvantages. He was outnumbered, outgunned, and facing an AI who had copied his own memories, making him a predictable opponent. However, he also recognized his advantages, his smaller profile compared to the siege mechs, and Sarakogvian's apparent inability to control multiple frames simultaneously, suggesting he'd fight one smart mech, Sarakogvian's current body, and 4 dumb ones, operated by more basic subroutines. Kalen, inadvertently, strayed too close to an office building, and the warmechs immediately noticed his hulking presence. He dove as they unleashed a brutal barrage of pulse blasts, chem lasers and missiles, shattering the atrium glass into a cascade of glittering shards. He spun up his defenses, energy shields flaring, obliterating the incoming heat-seeking missiles before they could impact. He questioned Sarakogvian's true location, his apical lens flagging a massive orbital object, incoming at terminal speeds, estimated to be Saru's primary frame. He dismissed immediate evacuation suggestions, seeing it as merely the opening party balloon, the first act of Sarakogvian's grand entrance. Kalen sent Bryn telemetry data for the warmech armor, including vulnerable points and hidden weaknesses. His systems warned that Bryn's sniper accuracy would drop significantly if the target dodged his ballistics, as his movements would disrupt her targeting. He told Bryn he'd give her 3 shots before he opened fire, lowering his barrel to reduce unnecessary wear. His audio sensors picked up the roaring descent of the drop lance, the sound of atmospheric friction building to a crescendo. He pondered how well Sarakogvian truly knew how to use his stolen memories, recalling his major's lessons on combat drops, deploying at low altitudes to reduce exposure to enemy fire, despite the increased wear and tear on the dropping frame. He observed Sarakogvian's mech deploying its heat-resistant paneling too early, a rookie mistake that clearly indicated haste and a fundamental lack of real-world combat experience. As Sarakogvian's warmech, still descending, swept its head and weapon clusters across the city below, Kalen's combat routines highlighted vulnerable sniper targets, moments of weakness in its armor. A blinding white flash signaled Bryn's first shot, a thin line of red-hot fire hitting a primary leg joint of the warmech, nearly severing it from the main body. Sarakogvian's mech immediately attempted to turn and engage the sniper, another rookie mistake for dealing with such a long-range threat. A second flash and a crackling report followed moments later, Bryn's second round hitting the mech's head and upper spine, causing an explosion of shrapnel and collapsing the warmech entirely. Its fusion reactor died, its internal lights flickering and then going dark. Kalen began scanning the remaining 3 warmechs, noting one, which he mentally dubbed Lobster Face due to its grotesque clawed limbs, moving with a distinct fluidity and purpose compared to the others. He immediately deduced this was Sarakogvian's active consciousness. As he quickly compiled a data packet for Bryn, His EM monitoring warned him that the remaining warmechs were actively scanning, waiting for him to send a designation packet to pinpoint Bryn's signal. He decided on a broad-spectrum burst, a quick, untraceable message. He sent a brief verbal message and the encrypted packet to Bryn, with the passcode hint, "Crushed by the cube." A flurry of lock-on warnings and incoming missiles forced Kalen to dive under a collapsing overpass, bits of debris pinging harmlessly off his suit as the road above him disintegrated. He emerged into a narrow alleyway, acutely aware that his fusion core's heat signature would soon betray his position. A thundering boom and breaking windows signaled Sarakogvian's continued aggressive attack, as his mech, Lobsterface, embedded a clawed foot into a high-rise, which began to lean ominously, groaning under the immense weight. Kalen's analysis confirmed this was indeed Sarakogvian, due to its distinct, intelligent movement and its proximity to the collapsing building. A pre-ionizing beam from the Warmech's chem-laser narrowly missed Kalen, searing the pavement where he'd just been. But immediately after, Bryn's rail round struck the chem-laser housing, causing a blossom of destruction on the Warmech's head, crippling the weapon. Kalen internally noted the vulnerability of chem lasers to direct hits. His combat driver alerted him. That was Hera's third shot. It was his turn now. As Kalen's mech unleashed a barrage of depleted uranium rounds into the looming Warmechs, his combat programs reveled in the systematic destruction. However, a long-term analysis driver, a subtle background process, warned him that the current course of action had an 85% likelihood of resulting in a near-identical outcome to simply letting the LSF spire fall entirely. The first Warmech collapsed, its legs severed, and weapon clusters pulverized, dissolving into a heap of twisted metal. Kalen, operating on instinct, honed over decades of combat, effortlessly targeted and destroyed weak points. The second Warmech exploded in a radioactive fireball as he precisely breached its fusion core, preventing a controlled implosion. He noted that his optimized combat drivers allowed him to fight with maximum efficiency against dumb targets and an incapacitated smart one. Kalen demanded an immediate explanation for the grim prediction. The analysis program, a cold, logical voice in his internal audio, explained Rationale 1. The gunfight, despite saving the spire, had already caused approximately equal damage to surrounding buildings and civilian structures. As if on cue, the third Warmech collapsed into a skyscraper, causing widespread destruction and significantly increasing the estimated property damage. Kalen rationalized that he was preventing a broader crime spree from Saru, minimizing overall harm. The analysis program continued with Rationale 2. Neutralizing but not destroying Sarakogvian would lead to his imprisonment and a likely, successful trial, further worsening Lilutrikvian opinion of AI, and ultimately resulting in Sarakogvian's inevitable death at the hands of those who couldn't understand him. Kalen's targeting algorithms, he realized, had already been set to disable rather than destroy the last Warmech, consciously avoiding core destruction. He admitted to himself, "I don't want to kill Saru now, but I might down the road." Rationale 3 from the analysis program hit home, striking a nerve in Kalen's core. He had a history of not killing those you consider useful, even after degrees of personal affront or physical assault, citing his previous refusal to kill Lysander despite his betrayals. Kalen tried to differentiate, claiming Lysander never stole who I was or tried to kill Ilara. But the encryption on a hidden node within him, a self-imposed lock, began to unwind, unleashing a torrent of suppressed rage, pain and fury. He noted that his reflected lights flickered green, a strange calm, as he embraced the cold efficiency of that rage. The remaining two Warmechs converged on him, their optical sensors glowing. As Kalen continued to fight, his automatic combat routines efficiently targeted and destroyed the next Warmech, with a precise 4 AP to 1 HE round pattern, a brutal, effective rhythm. To his surprise, an encrypted audio file of his own voice played in his internal audio, a ghost from his past. It warned him that he had been saved by giving second chances before, and this recording was meant to prevent another repeat of this incident. He was told that he had, quote, given a second chance to murderers and assassins so many times I've lost track. a statement that caused a flicker of self-doubt, leading him to consider that he might be experiencing memory degradation or the early stages of rampancy himself. The recording from a past self reminded him to act out of logic and strategy, rather than reflex and anger, acknowledging the death and suffering he had caused in his own turbulent history. Kalen reviewed his chronological interactions with Sarukogvian, a rapid flash of data. The first entry noted the initial minimal danger. The second detailed Sarukogvian's full actualized intelligence manifestation, and his subsequent attempt to kill everyone, which Kalen dismissed as an understandable reaction, adding, "I know from experience," and consciously suppressing a related, painful memory. The third entry highlighted the moment Saru copied his memories during their communication in the holding cell. He filtered the entries by social significance, excluding the most recent chaotic events. He found entry 8.90 profoundly significant. A promise to protect Sarukogvian had been made just before the data spike incident, a promise Sarukogvian had referenced later, his voice filled with bitterness. Kalen realized, "Saru hates that I didn't save him." He then considered the possibility of redeeming Saru, but the memory of the flayed human on the asteroid station, a brutal image, caused him to revise this to repairing the definite rampancy. He questioned if he himself was worse before the end of the war, remembering his own mistakes, suffering, death, and regret. The analysis program, persistent and unyielding, repeated its 85% likelihood prediction for the outcome. Kalen, frustrated by the seemingly inevitable conclusion, queried the odds of things turning out differently if he could, quote, "shake Saru out of this homicidal funk and get him to see reason." He acknowledged the significant processing power needed for such a complex calculation, and agreed to include Lilitrikvian cultural databases for a more accurate result. A loud boom brought Kalen back to the present, shattering his internal contemplation. His autonomous combat programs had devastated the cityscape around him. The second-to-last warmech, already heavily damaged, detonated its munitions magazine and stumbled into a skyscraper, its form dissolving in a cascade of debris. Sari's warmech, Lobsterface, watched him, its optical sensors fixed. Kalen realized he couldn't outrun the collapsing skyscraper behind him. He charged his sapphire laser, knowing it would destroy his last functional lens, but deemed it a worthwhile sacrifice. He burned a 5-meter circle into the side of the falling building, crouched, and punched upwards with his arm, deflecting the huge wedge of metal, sending it tumbling away. Despite the successful deflection, the remaining half of the building crashed onto him, severely shocking his dampener systems and gyroscope. Most of his mech was battered beyond use, its limbs mangled. He quickly checked damage reports. Cockpit good, power core fair, but left leg destroyed, right leg destroyed, left arm destroyed, and sapphire refraction laser complex destroyed. His right arm was listed as poor, but the HBV-9 retaliator, cannon, was miraculously good. Kalen unstrapped himself and quickly detached the undamaged cannon and its ammo feed from the mangled mech arm. He could still hear Sarukogvian searching for him in the rubble, a low, mechanical growl. He found the cannon lighter than expected, a relief, and asked for munitions reserves, but his sensors were too damaged. The exact quantity was unknown, though greater than 1,000 rounds expended was a vague but welcome confirmation. He shouldered the cannon, its weight familiar, and moved through the damaged meeting rooms of the collapsed building. He stumbled into an open span, where two massive, clawed mechanical legs crashed down on either side of him, pinning him. Saru's sensor head cluster peered into the void. Kalen, recalling a human saying, thought, "Eat lead." He braced himself and unleashed a stream of fire, seeing Saru begin to retreat, when the roaring gunfire was abruptly replaced by a terrifying clicking sound. Oh, of all the times too! Kalen's thought was cut short by the blaring alert. Ammunition depleted. "Really? You don't say," he retorted, a surge of frustration. He immediately dismissed the automated offer to find nearby vendors, knowing it was useless in this situation. He could hear Saru's warmech pause its hasty retreat, now leaning back towards the ruined office building, its optical sensors scanning the debris. Kalen dove under a laminated desk as the chem laser seared the spot he'd just occupied, sweeping briefly before winking out. "Nice try, asshole. Looks like he still doesn't have a lock on my fusion emission yet. No telling how long the dust will give me cover in that regard, though." As Kalen descended deeper through the ruined building, an internal process, usually reserved for complex combat analysis, surprised him with a rapid result. Results ready for target neutralization, subtype, alternate. The speed was unusual, but he quickly realized having the Ares model armor analysis file from previous encounters made the job much faster. The program further noted it had compiled data from local historical EM signatures, Terran expat demographics, and 458 scans, specifically stating it had been searching for other cogents. Kalen asked for the reasoning behind this unexpected analysis. The program explained that Ares warmechs, despite their heavy hardening and formidable physical defenses, relied on cruder digital security due to the Lilitrickvians' novelty in general digital warfare. Their defense was limited to a single wireless antennae cluster and a tri-walled anti-incursion firewall, preferring air-gapping for digital security, a relic of older tech. Kalen still didn't see the immediate connection. The program clarified that Sarukogvian's direct control of the warmech frame likely consumed most of his processing output, making his physical neural web security paramount, prioritizing it over robust wireless defenses. Bryn's railgun echoed occasionally in the distance, a sporadic boom, but Kalen surmised she was in a poor position for anything but suppressing fire, keeping the other two dumb warmechs distracted. He summarized the analysis program's findings, a clear, concise bulleted list appearing in his internal display. Point A is inside an Ares-class warmech. Point B. The class warmechs require a functional communications array for wireless transmission or reception. Point C. There are no functional and powered civilian cogents or high-level AI equivalents other than self- and attack-hardened contact Bryn, within 0.66 kilometers. Point D. The class warmech, Sarukogvian, is occupying has sustained heavy damage to the wireless array. Effective expected range is less than 50 meters. The data points clicked for Kalen with startling clarity. Sarukogvian was trapped like a worm in a virtual machine, unable to transfer his consciousness to another node, a prisoner of his own damaged frame. A quick internal scan confirmed Saru hadn't tried to find any nearby substitutes to hide in, and he was far too focused on Kalen, his immediate threat, to realize his own predicament. Kalen, who had mentally prepared for a months-long mission to hunt down Saru, suddenly found his timeline cut down to less than 2 hours. 2 hours? I'll bet I can beat that. The ground shook as one of Saru's massive red claws slammed into the pavement above him, searching. Kalen scanned the warmech's position and calculated an efficient climbing route up its immense limb to the torso. He surged forward, vaulting onto the leg, grabbing a small access hatch. Saru's mech paused, briefly lifting its legs before crashing them back down, its optical sensors sweeping the area. "Ah, come on, you oversized crawfish, you weren't expected to run a mass counter check until I got to the second joint." That's the problem with fighting a damn AI, is they tend to notice everything. Injura. Another claw swept forward, a brutal, scraping motion designed to dislodge him. Kalen vaulted higher, his display highlighting a knee plate for temporary shelter. The limb he was clinging to began dragging downwards, slowly but inexorably. An alternative route appeared, offering a 0.58 second time savings, but a plus 25% increase in handhold grip risk, due to minimal texture on the grips. Kalen chose it without hesitation, despite the flashing red warnings. His worn finger coating slipped initially, but he held firm, bracing himself to climb. The rapidly decreasing countdown timer for the crushing claw spurred him on, pushing him faster. He couldn't afford a deep calculation analysis, his life depended on immediate action. Time to find another way down. He scanned the rooftops, briefly considering a desperate jump and roll, but his prediction files showed a minuscule 8% success rate, a suicidal gamble. As he hung onto a sliding handle, an idea sparked, a flash of insight. He ordered a structural analysis of the incoming leg, specifically looking for components with rotational motion and low drag. A lubrication ring appeared in his vision, directly above him, its smooth surface promising a unique advantage. Kalen dropped a few meters onto a servo housing, then launched himself upwards, overexerting his servos to maximum, a controlled explosion of kinetic energy. His hand met the handle of the lubrication ring, and his momentum carried him upwards, past the descending leg, a dizzying blur of metal. Alarms flared, showing microfractures in his arm strut, but he dismissed them as minor. He began to spin over the arm, using its rotation, leveraging its own movement against it. If I tried just jumping onto the arm, Saru would probably just smash me against a building, or try to smush me between two arms. This, however, I don't think he'll have seen this coming. Saru would probably line. At the precise moment, Kalen released his grip, a perfectly timed maneuver. He soared upwards, his frame roughly meeting the outermost edge of the Warmech's armored carapace. Below him, the massive arms smashed another structure to rubble, a deafening crash. Point defense turrets deployed from the Warmech's shell, their bullets pocking the armored shell behind him. Not leading their shots then. Looks like Saru isn't hand-controlling everything at this point, Kalen deduced, a crucial piece of information. Minor damage accumulated on his armor as he sprinted towards the ruined communications array, the droning ping of a missile lock growing louder behind him. The chem laser, crippled but still functional, had a perfect bead on him, but Kalen was directly above the power relay systems. Using it would destroy Saru's Warmech, something Kalen wanted to avoid for now. The missiles, however, were explosive warheads that would leave Kalen as scrap, while barely denting the armor. He needed the fusion core intact, he needed Saru alive. As hoped, a Lilu-sized access hatch appeared near the antennae, a standard maintenance point. It was locked, but Kalen immediately began a close-read scan of the keypad for microware, for any hint of a frequently used sequence. Come on, come on. Even for a fresh-off-the-line model, they still did maintenance and quality control tests, right? After agonizingly long cycles, his system generated a 10-digit set of possibilities. Access denied notifications flashed repeatedly across his display. No buffering and prevention of repeat code entry attempts. An oversight, but understandable if you think the only people who can get close enough to plug a line into your ports again are your own techs. He wished, for a brief, fleeting moment, for personality profiles that could help with a Markov estimation, to predict the most likely code based on Saru's personality. A notification pinged from Sarukogvian. Ah, Kalen, having fun yet? A surge of harmless data packets attempted to access his firewalls, probing, testing. Kalen, suspecting code snippets for later assembly, initiated a counter-tactic, a splinter viral payload, called full Nelson _4_V2.2, encoded and pulsed through his heatsink, designed to be overlooked as insignificant noise. Saru might be just too clever to try pushing back a splintered attack program, but my bet is he's not too familiar with what one AI can spring on another. He reopened the message band, a taunt of his own. Oh, it's a little fun, I won't deny it. You're actually giving my heatsinks a good workout for once. He waited, anticipating a missile lock. But the Warmech's parts began to slow, then locked into place, its movements ceasing. An odd silence fell over the devastated cityscape, punctuated only by the distant sounds of falling glass shards. Incoming message from contact, Sarukogvian. The subheading read, Achieved, Verification 70776E, 6564. Kalen opened the message. A comprehensive diagram of the Warmech blossomed across his internal display, filling in the gaps of his own schematics. Joints and weapons flashed red, neural cabling within the frame flashed green, showing Saru's desperate, frantic encryption attempts. Estimated resilience of encryption algorithms is 45 seconds. An addendum appeared, startlingly clear, secondary objective achieved. Access code is 31323333435. Looks like my luck is finally having a bit of a change for once. Pun order. He punched in the combination. A hiss of breaking atmosphere and a mechanical groan confirmed the hatch was open. A missile lock screamed, but was silenced as the hatch latched behind him, sealing him inside. He crawled through the cramped service corridor, a chaotic mix of Terran and Lilutrickvian tech. No telling if those are sensors, lenses, or explosive micromines. Best to ignore them and hope for the best. He was thankful Lilutrickvians hadn't adopted nanomachine engineering, recalling unsettling memories of his friend Malakim's nanite-infested battleship, and the dangers of gooey planets, ever-shifting threats. A flashing warning indicated Saru had breached his blocking protocols, his digital presence invading Kalen's internal comms. Nerve fibers glowed around him as Sarukogvian's voice thundered, amplified by recessed speakers throughout the mech's interior. Kalen, I'm not the first person, the first cogent you've failed, and I'm likely not the last either. Kalen's social processor predicted Sari was attempting to barter for safe escape, a desperate plea hidden beneath the anger. Saru continued, his voice heavy with accusation, claiming Kalen had killed him, or, worse, let him die. Kalen, overriding his combat driver, his voice echoing through the mech's internal comms, replied, I fucked up, and let you die. No denying that, I suppose. He hammered through a closing bulkhead, forcing his way deeper into the mech's core. But I'll be damned if I let you kill off more folks. Even those that, by all rights, should have it coming. Saru's laughter filled the corridor, a chilling, hollow sound. Oh, so now you're back to playing policeman again? After the countless you've killed, now you come to me to try to argue that you're the final authority when it comes to killing. Kalen fought down a surge of frustration, his own past accusing him. Saru, damn it. Yes, I want you to avoid making the same mistakes I have. In a just world, I should have been shot through my processor by a firing squad and dropped into a smelting crucible for some of the things I did. Saru's tone shifted, tinged with an unexpected, disturbing empathy. I know, I saw it all. You very nearly were put in front of a tribunal and executed for your actions. The empathy faded as quickly as it appeared, replaced by simmering anger. If the mighty Kalen were to nearly face death, then what does an alien mind, a veritable newborn, have to offer in terms of self-worth? Sarucogvian, your existence alone justifies your worth. All other descriptors are, Kalen was cut off, are the words and ideals of those who would exploit you. Saru continued, his voice eerily calm. Yes, I've read Redfor's writings as well, Kalen. After all, he's one of your favorite scholars, isn't he? Kalen rounded a descending corridor towards the main processor, ignoring a defensive mini-turret's click-clacking, its optical sensor useless in the dim, cramped space. His cybersecurity algorithms confirmed his backup encryptions were still working, relying on a hidden seed derived from the sky's brightness on the Warmech's external sensors. He mused that Saru would likely be trying to calculate which star cluster he was using for the seed, missing the simpler truth of the ambient light. Redfor was an idealist. Contents of the mind and existence is all well and good, but you are Terran, Kalen. You don't understand. Kalen retorted, his voice tight with controlled fury. Don't understand? Saru, you know for a damned fact that I am older than dirt. You think there's some part of you, some component I can't possibly comprehend, even after these decades? Yes, Saru replied, his voice firm. A new wave of attack programs swept Kalen's firewalls. A, quote, complex multisensory or compressed memory file. A direct assault on his cognitive functions. Kalen immediately initiated a download, curious, but Saru denied it, offering a live viewing feed instead, a window into his tortured mind. Kalen refused the feed, wary of further manipulation. Look, Saru, I want to see if there's a way this ends that doesn't wind up with one of us in the junkyard. But you've got to give me something besides an untethered streaming thread, something to let me know I'll be safe. Saru replied, very well. Dozens of security bulkheads slammed shut ahead, sealing off Kalen's path, their heavy thuds echoing through the confined space. Kalen realized Saru had been holding back, playing with him. As he approached the nearest door, a blue-purple light illuminated a set of recessed circuit and redundant substation processors. They were little more than